not trying to be contradictory or anything, but when you say, I know you cannot do this,
yes,
you are right there making him not do it. I mean, isn't there, can one not say, I know you can do this, just, you know, and do it in a positive instead of putting implanting negative thoughts, negative reactions into their head? And of course they're not going to be doing it. And my other question to you is, even children without ADHD, even as an adult, you forget the time, you get involved in something, and you miss your time zone, or when you're supposed to be in another place, or you're supposed to be home at this time. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit more about this.
Okay.
Because I really am...
Feeding your child information about how their disability affects them is not negative behavior. In the way that I don't tell my child, look, you are not able to do this, blah, blah, blah. However, I look at my child, he tries to do something that he should be able to do. I know that it's incredibly difficult for him. I know it's hard. I know it's his brain, biology. My job is not to tell him, just try harder. My job is not to tell him, just don't worry about it, blow it off. He wants to accomplish a task. My job is to find a way to help him accomplish that task.
Isn't it through positive reinforcement? Are you saying then positive reinforcement is not good for somebody with ADHD?
No, the opposite. Positive reinforcement is the best way.
Okay, but you had negative reinforcement, and when you said he couldn't do that.
I did not let him leave the house without that watch.
No, but I might have misunderstood, because you had said that you told him, I know you cannot do this.
In my head, I'm making the decision. Am I going to let him leave with the watch that doesn't have the alarm, or am I going to say, I'm sorry, you have to find your watch? And my decision is, you have to find your watch, based on my knowledge that I'm setting him up to fail if I use that watch that doesn't have the alarm.
So positive reinforcement is always a good thing then to work.
Positive reinforcement is central to behavior modification. Children, if you constantly tell them no, 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 don't, no, they don't hear it anymore.
Right.
If you give them small rewards based on tasks, they're oriented towards tasks. This is the behavior I want. You come home when this alarm beeps. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm looking for.
Right.
Expectation is clear. The rules never change. This is privilege. These are the consequences if you don't take responsibility for this privilege. Okay. Right? And I don't give him that privilege until he's ready to be able to. I know he can do it.
So how do you identify, you know, on a child? He's 10?
He's 10.
Okay, so another 10-year-old that is not ADHD, and you need to be home at this time and you don't come home. How would you know which one? I mean...
Well, the expectations are the same.
Yeah.
The expectations are the same. I don't think that technique would be different from any parent who wants your child to come home. What I know is, without that watch, I am setting him up to fail.
I see.
The watch becomes a modification. If he doesn't have the watch with the alarm, he will never come home on time.
Okay,
it won't happen.
So children with ADHD and you know, talking more about myths and things like that that take place, how does a parent, to the best of your knowledge, as a parent, what do you look for, or what is something that maybe stood out for you that said, hey, something's not right here with my child. I need to take him or her to be tested. Exactly.
Absolutely. Parents that I'm hearing from, parents that I've discussed things with, all come to a same crisis point where you are working as hard as you can. You are looking for any answer because your child that you know is not the child that everyone else sees. And my kid got tossed out of preschool and they told me he was retarded, something was wrong with him, he didn't speak normally. He echoed everything you said, and when you asked him a question, he couldn't answer it at 2 or 3 years old. How was your day? He can't answer that question. And I knew he was intelligent, I knew he could do it. I could manage him at 2 and 3 years old, but the preschool was just a nightmare. And so actually my brother is autistic, and I called my mom in tears. I'm like, Ma, you know, I have this beautiful, wonderful child that everybody hates because I don't know what to do. What do? I can't go to school and make him behave for them. and he's got to socialize. And she sent me down the path to get him tested, but it was still we lost almost 3 or 4 years of misdiagnosis, because in his particular case, he was actually really, really smart, and we didn't know. And he had compensated for the tests. I found an education specialist finally after a year. I was like, this is not working. My child is miserable. He hates himself. And that's not how I raised him. I don't raise him to tell him something's wrong with him. I raised him to tell him he's great and he hates himself. But for parents, I think the key thing to notice is if you constantly find yourself saying, my kid should be able to do this, and your techniques that you use with your other kids or were used with you or you know that work don't work at all, then you need to ask yourself why. And the reason is because the way their brains are developed, the way they react to their environment is different than the kids who don't have ADHD. And behavior modification, ways to discipline them, ways to talk to them, ways to set up their time and your time, those are how your child will get to where every other child is.
Good.
And be able to function in a classroom and be able to leave you and go get a job and get married and have kids. You can't hold their hand the whole time,
right,
but you have an obligation to give them a path,
right,
that works for them. And what I do for parent training is the paths that are given to me by chat are actually studied with lots of kids in various countries and proven to work, and proven to help prevent the I hate myself. Okay. I don't know how many parents I've heard that my kid hates himself.
Now that we hear about these children, we also understand, as we change gears here a little bit and talk in the second half, what I'd like to talk about is adults.